If I'd known I was going to die again today, I would have at least worn a shirt without holes. Technically, I didn't die. Legal would have a fit if I put that in an official report. But when half a pack of rogue wolves decides you're the main course, you start measuring your day in almost funerals. The elevator doors slid open with a soft chime, spilling me out into the main hallway of the Hounds of Law unit, concrete, glass, and the permanent smell of burned coffee and wet fur. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, reflecting off polished floors and the big mirrored wall where someone, with too much budget, had etched our division's logo, a stylized wolf's head wrapped in barbed wire. I limped past it, shirt shredded, jeans ripped at the knee, dried blood I was pretty sure wasn't mine on my collar. My hair stood up in chaotic tufts, thanks to one particularly enthusiastic alpha who'd grabbed me by the scruff. But the important part? The flash drive between my teeth. Morning, Lane. I glanced sideways. Kessler, Kess to everyone but payroll, leaned against his desk, mug in hand, sharp beta. Eyes skimming over me like I was a crime scene that hadn't decided what kind yet. His glasses were smudged. His tie, as always, was perfectly straight. "You look terrible," he said pleasantly. I tried to answer, forgot about the flash drive, and nearly swallowed it. "Mrf," I muttered, pulling it out with a wet pop. "You should see the other guys." "I can." He tilted his head toward the glass wall that looked out over the briefing room's live feeds. One of the screens still showed the alleyway from 20 minutes ago. Overturned trash cans, cracked pavement, a smear of blood. "You caused 3 property damage complaints in 18 minutes. 4, I corrected. Because credit where credit's due. Someone's bike didn't survive. Tragic." His nose twitched almost imperceptibly. Betas weren't as scent-sensitive as alphas or omegas, but they were still wolves, just the sane kind. "Marcus is going to murder you. Marcus is always going to murder me," I said. My voice came out lighter than I felt. "It's his love language." Kess snorted into his mug. Behind him, the hallway opened into our little kingdom. Rows of desks, flickering monitors, the soft background hum of printers and wolf hearing picking up phone calls 3 stations away. A few agents glanced up as I walked by. Someone whistled low. "Hey, Lane," Javi called from his desk, a tall beta with tattoos curling up his forearms. "Lose a fight with a blender?" "Blender, 4 alphas, and an unsecured dumpster," I said. "But don't worry. I seduced the data out of their encrypted server." I held up the flash drive. It glinted accusingly under the lights. A couple of them laughed. A couple of them winced. All of them, though, glanced toward the far end of the floor, where a single door stood under a frosted glass panel that read, "Captain M. Kane." The air was different down here. The hallway leading to his office was cooler, quieter, like even the building knew better than to breathe too loudly near Marcus. My steps slowed. The ache in my shoulder, where claws had scraped bone, throbbed in rhythm with my heart. Instinct whispered, "Don't," the way it always did when I got close to him. I told Instinct to shut up and knocked once, then pushed the door open without waiting for an answer. The scent hit me first. Alphas always smelled stronger in enclosed spaces, heavier, denser, like the air itself thickened. Marcus's scent was all sharp pine and cold metal, with something darker underneath, storm clouds pressed against glass. It hit the inside of my ribs with a dull thud. I stepped inside anyway, grinning. "Hi, boss. You're not going to like this." His office looked exactly like he did. Controlled, minimal, sharp edges. Dark desk, with everything at right angles, blinds half open to let in a slice of gray city light, 2 chairs facing him with surgical precision between them. Not a single file out of place, not a single coffee ring on the surface. I was a walking coffee stain in comparison. Marcus sat behind the desk, broad shoulders filling out a crisp black shirt, sleeves rolled up to reveal tanned forearms. His dark hair was slicked back in that too neat way that made me want to ruin it on principle. Gray eyes cut up to me, flat and unreadable. Then they did a flicker, down my ripped shirt, over the dried streak on my collar, lingering half a second too long on my throat. For a heartbeat, the scent of pine went razor sharp. Control slammed back into place so fast the air might have cracked. "Lane," he said, voice like the scrape of a knife on stone. Close the door. Ah, I'm not yelling in front of the team voice. My favorite. I kicked the door shut with my heel and sauntered forward, dropping into the chair opposite him without being asked. My ribs protested. My instincts protested louder. My legs pretended they were fine. I tossed the flash drive onto his desk. It skidded to a neat stop in front of his fingers. Data from the Rogue Pack server, I said. Transaction logs, client list, the whole illegal buffet. You're welcome. He didn't look at the flash drive. He looked at me. What? He said slowly. Did I tell you about deviating from the plan? Don't, I said promptly. Don't run into unsecured buildings alone. Don't let them corner me in a dead-end alley. Don't taunt the alpha who's twice my size about his fake Rolex, etc., etc. We had a very thorough lecture. The muscle in his jaw ticked. And which of those, he asked, did you ignore first? The Rolex, I said, obviously. It was practically a cry for help. For a second, I thought he was going to lunge across the desk and throttle me. His scent spiked, pine and electricity, and his fingers curled on the edge of the table. Behind me, through the glass wall, I caught a blur of movement. The team was pretending not to watch. Badly. This was the thing about working with alphas. Their instincts wanted to run the room like a pack, to pin, to command, to own. This was the thing about being an Omega. My instincts wanted to react. Yield. Fold. Unfortunately for both of us, I'd never been very good at doing what I was supposed to. Marcus exhaled, long and controlled, like forcing his temper back into its cage. The scent pressure eased, just a little. His voice, when he spoke again, was clinical. Report, now. And take your feet off my desk. I hadn't actually put them there yet. So, obviously, I did. The heels of my boots landed with a solid thump on the polished wood. A couple of pens jumped in their holder. Marcus's chair creaked as he jerked to his feet. Feet, he growled. Off. The desk. Wow, I said, blinking innocently. You hear yourself? You sound like I'm your House Omega or something. Something flickered in his eyes. Annoyance, heat, both. The scent in the room blew sideways for a fraction of a second, wild and dangerous, before he caught it. Lane, my name came out lower, raw, like it had been dragged over gravel. You are an asset of this unit, not a person. I tilted my head. Not a partner? Come on, finish the sentence. Let's traumatize me properly so I can bill therapy to HR. He closed his eyes just long enough to count to 3. I knew the rhythm by now. 1. Don't kill him. 2. You need him. 3. Homicide paperwork. When he opened them again, his control sat on him like armor. Your job, he said, enunciating every word, is to act as bait under the supervision of this unit, not to improvise solo missions. We rely on the instincts of alphas to read a hunt. We rely on betas to stabilize and analyze. Omegas are walking neon signs. I finished. I know. I read the brochure. The truth was, he wasn't wrong. In our world, alphas hunted, betas kept everyone from losing their minds, and omegas drew things out, aggression, attention, obsession. It was biology, chemistry, law enforcement strategy, and state-sanctioned manipulation all rolled into one. Then act like you understand your role, he snapped. My own hackles rose, even if I kept my tone light. Oh, I do. But here's the fun part, boss. The role still works even if I color outside your very sharp, very square lines. I jerked my chin toward the flash drive. We have their buyer list now. Without it, you'd have just a pile of angry fur in an alley and a broken dumpster. And you, he said, would be in the morgue. Hey, almost. I lifted my hands in a mock surrender gesture, but almost dead still clocks in as alive on my end. His gaze darkened. For a second, something like genuine fear cut through the anger, fast and sharp before he buried it. That was new. His voice softened by half a degree. You don't get to gamble with your life because you think it's funny, Lane. I looked away, suddenly very interested in a speck of dust on his blinds. If he knew how many times I'd gambled with my life long before I ever got a badge, he'd probably take that flash drive, march me downstairs, and handcuff me to a desk. Or a bedpost. Not the point. Behind us, someone shifted in the hallway. The glass wall gave a faint reflection of the squad's faces, angled just so they could see inside. Chavi mouthed something that looked suspiciously like dead man walking. Marcus noticed them. His expression iced over. Out, he barked. The silhouettes dispersed instantly. The pressure in the room eased, but not by much. He sat down again, picked up the flash drive between two fingers, and turned it once. I'll have Kess verify the data. If it's clean, we may be able to roll half the city's black market network in a month. You're welcome, I said again, but quieter this time. He ignored that. Your written report by 1400. And you're seeing medical. Now, I opened my mouth to argue, then shifted wrong in the chair. Pain lanced up my side, white hot and immediate. I sucked in a breath between my teeth. Marcus's head snapped up. Lane, it's fine, I lied. Just a love tap. I've had worse. From fans, he stared at me like he could smell the lye molecules in the air. Which, to be fair, he probably could. Medical, he repeated. Or I'll put you on suspension. There it was, the alpha command, not too strong. Nothing that would trip legal. Thresholds, but wrapped in enough authority that my omega instincts flinched. The law of Bond. Bond Statute 14, subsection C, depending on which boring handbook you preferred, said Anne. Alpha couldn't compel obedience from an omega without explicit consent and paperwork the length of my arm. No marking, no forcing, no coercion. But there were loopholes. There were always loopholes. His voice wasn't a push. Not really. My body still wanted to obey. I swallowed, forcing my hackles to lie flat, forcing myself to move because I chose to, not because he told me to. Fine, I said, getting to my feet. But if the doc says I need ice cream, I'm charging it to your account. Out, he said again, but it lacked heat. I paused at the door, hand on the handle, then glanced back. He wasn't looking at the flash drive anymore. He was looking at me. Like he was trying very, very hard not to. The pressure of his scent pressed against my back, heavy as a hand. Caged. Contained. Too contained. Why was he holding it that tight? My heart did a weird, traitorous stutter. Hey Marcus, I said lightly. Try not to miss me too much while I'm gone. Lane. Yeah? He hesitated. The silence stretched, thin as glass. Nothing, he said at last. Don't bleed on my floor again. I flashed him a grin I didn't feel and slipped out into the hallway. The moment the door clicked shut behind me, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out, expecting some meme from Javi or a reminder from Kess about paperwork. The message on the encrypted app was short, cold, and made my stomach drop. You're getting too close to him. Remember your assignment, Lane. Observe. Report. You are our man in Hounds of Law. Don't forget it. My reflection stared back at me in the glass wall across from the office. Ripped shirt, bloodstains, messy hair, and a smile that was starting to feel a little cracked at the edges. I shoved the phone back into my pocket and walked toward medical, whistling softly. On the other side of the glass, Marcus was a dark shape behind his desk, shoulders rigid, head bowed over the tiny piece of plastic that might change everything. That alpha was holding his instincts in a chokehold so tight it had to hurt. Why? What was he hiding? And more importantly, what was it going to cost me to find out? If the Hounds of Law had a group motto, it would be something like, "This is fine," spoken while everything burns behind us. Because tonight, nothing was fine. Cold wind knifed between abandoned warehouses, carrying the scent of rotten metal and industrial mold. The moon hung low and swollen above the shipping district, painting long shadows that twitched in the corners of my eyes. Perfect ambiance for a hunt. Focus. Marcus snapped. I blinked and realized I'd been staring at him instead of the hollow map projected between us. Not my fault. Someone really should have banned alphas from rolling up their sleeves during night ops. It was practically entrapment. His forearms flexed as he recentered the display. Gray eyes moved over the glowing lines with lethal calm. We enter through the west door, he said. Lane, you stay behind Kess until I give the signal. I nodded with the practiced attentiveness of someone who absolutely wasn't listening. My inner monologue was louder. Who let him be that attractive and that terrifying at the same time? Where are the regulatory policies for dangerously handsome law enforcement alphas? Should HR and you will not deviate from my instructions. Marcus finished sharply. I jolted back to the present. Obviously. When have I ever deviated? Shall I list the incidents alphabetically or chronologically? That was rhetorical, I sighed. Javi's voice crackled through the comms. Cap. We're positioned on the south corridor. Visuals clear. Copy, Marcus said, then leveled that knife-edged gaze at me. Lane, remember your role. Be irresistible and chaotic. Say no more. Lane. Okay, I muttered. Bait. I know. I did know. Too well. Omegas were designed, biologically, chemically, to draw out aggression, attention, fixation. My scent alone could pull a rogue wolf out of hiding like a magnet in a field of iron filings. Useful. Terrifying. I hated that it worked. Marcus exhaled hard, rubbing his temple like this mission was already giving him a migraine. Stay close to Kess. Move only when I... But I'd already started walking toward the warehouse entrance. Lane. What? Pre-bait stretching, I lied as I cracked my neck. He snarled something colorful under his breath. The warehouse doors groaned open with a metallic scream. Inside, pitch-black corridors, damp concrete, the stench of rust and adrenaline. Showtime. Scent hit me first. 3 rogues. Maybe 4, male. Aggressive. One had a distinctive burnt oil smell. Someone who worked around engines a lot. Another carried the sour sting of illegal boosters. My Omega senses sharpened, slicing through the dark. My pulse quickened in that primal instinctive way that said, keep moving or get eaten. I stepped deeper inside, letting my scent seep into the air. Subtle, then a bit louder, the kind of trail that said, vulnerable but cocky. It tended to irritate alphas to the point of stupidity, extremely effective for arrests. Behind me, Kess whispered, you're too far ahead. Relax, I whispered back. If something eats me, file the paperwork in triplicate. Marcus loves that. Kess made a strangled noise. This is not... Lane, wait. Your heart rate just spiked. Because Marcus was suddenly behind us. His scent hit like a physical force. Pine, steel, and thunder about to break. Alphas always smelled stronger during hunts, instincts rising with the tension. But Marcus? Marcus filled the whole hallway like he owned every cubic inch of oxygen in it. I felt it low in my spine. Omega nerves trembling in warning, or something dangerously close to anticipation. Lane. His voice was a command wrapped in smoke. Hold position. I am holding, I whispered. Actually, I'm practically frozen. It's impressive. He didn't answer. I couldn't see his face in the dark, but I felt him. Every shift of muscle, every inhale. He was close enough that my scent coiled around his in invisible knots, which should have been illegal. Literally, bond laws existed because prolonged unsupervised scent mixing between an alpha and omega could trigger instinct spirals. Too much contact, too much tension, too much movement ahead. A growl rolled through the corridor, vibrating the metal pipes along the walls. Marcus stiffened. Targets approaching. Kess, flank left. Lane, stay. But I caught the sour booster smell intensify and felt the air shift around me. The rogues weren't coming down the corridor. They were circling. Left, I said. Lane. Marcus, I hissed. They're flanking us. I can feel them. He cursed softly into the comms. All units, adjust formation. Lane, stay behind. Too late. A rogue lunged from the side hallway, eyes gleaming, boosters pumping through his veins like gasoline on fire. I dodged right, heart slamming against my ribs. Another growl erupted behind me. I was surrounded. Perfect. I let instinct take over just enough. Omega scent flaring in a sharp, irresistible spike. The rogues hesitated, nostrils flaring. Their aggression spiked exactly how I needed it to. They rushed me. Lane! Marcus's roar shredded the comms. I pivoted, slid under one rogue's arm, and bolted down a narrow side corridor. This wasn't the plan, which was exactly why it would work. Their pack leader was smart enough to hide in the shadows, using subordinates as bait. Classic setup. But the faint scent of burnt oil and motor grease ahead told me where he really was. A hidden maintenance passage. Lane, you are off route, Kess shouted. No, I'm on my route, I panted. Just not the one Marcus likes. You're going to get killed. That's tomorrow's problem. The corridor dead-ended at a maintenance door. I slammed into its shoulder first. It screeched open. Inside was a cramped walkway lined with rusted pipes, and a tall alpha with mechanic's grease on his hands and murder in his eyes. Bingo. He lunged. I ducked, rolled, scrambled behind a boiler unit. He swiped, claws raking the metal where my head had been. Pain shot up my knee as it hit concrete. Okay, maybe this had been slightly reckless. The rogue grabbed a pipe and yanked it loose with a snarl. Then, footsteps thundered behind us, and Marcus's scent crashed into the passage like a tidal wave. Electric, sharp, furious. The rogue faltered, just enough for Marcus to seize him from behind, slam him against the wall, and cuff him with brutal precision. The other two rogues skidded in after him, caught instantly by Kess and Javi. Marcus didn't look at them. He looked at me. Lane, he snarled. I told you. You're welcome. I wheezed from the floor. He strode toward me, boots hitting concrete with the restrained fury of someone, fighting the urge to throw me over his shoulder and duct tape me to a chair. His scent was wildfire, untethered, too raw. For one terrifying, breath-stealing second, I saw a crack in his control, and felt my own instincts stretch toward it like magnets snapping together. Marcus froze, looked away, forced it all back down. Don't, he said, voice rough. Don't do that again. What? Breathe. He glared. Javi's voice chirped through the comms. $20 says Lane did something stupid. 40 says Marcus shoots him before shift ends, someone else replied. I waved weakly. Love the confidence, team. After processing the rogues and handing them off to transport, we piled into the SUV. Kess sat up front, analyzing data on his tablet. The world outside was a blur of streetlights and cold air. I sat in the back, next to Marcus. The space between us felt dangerously small. His shoulder nearly brushed mine. His scent was still unsettled, pine sharpened to ice. My pulse reacted before my brain could intervene. Stop it. Nope. Illegal. Bad. Dangerous. I shifted a little farther away. He shifted slightly closer. My lungs forgot how to function. The silence in the SUV wasn't peaceful. It was a taut wire stretched between us, humming with everything we weren't supposed to feel. Finally, Marcus spoke. You disobeyed a direct order. I prefer the term creatively enhanced the mission. You put the team at risk and caught the alpha running the whole network, I said. So, you know. Ups and downs. He stared ahead, jaw clenched. The vein in his forearm pulsed. Lane. Marcus. If you pull something like that again, Oh, relax, I said lightly, because the tension was suffocating me. I don't bite. My voice dropped without permission. Usually, the air thickened. Kess coughed loudly from the front seat. Javi radioed in. Everything okay back there? No, Marcus growled. Yes, I said at the same time. We glared at each other, and for the first time tonight, Marcus looked less like a storm about to break, and more like someone trying very, very hard not to drown in it. I looked out the window so I wouldn't have to look at him. Dangerous. This was all becoming way, way too dangerous. And not just because of the criminals. Not even close. The first time I realized something was wrong with me, it was because of his coffee. Not the coffee itself. That was terrible as usual, but the way his scent curled around it. Bitter roast, burnt filters, and under it all, the sharp pine and metal that was pure Marcus Kane. We were in the analyst's room, a low-lit cave of screens and soft humming machines. Someone had left the blinds half-drawn, so the city outside looked like a watercolor of neon and fog. The air smelled like tea, electronics, and pack, layers of beta calm, cushioning the harsher alpha edges. drifting in from the main floor. I leaned against the doorway, watching Kess click through surveillance feeds. Marcus stood beside him, coffee in hand, gaze locked on a grainy image of a truck pulling into a warehouse 2 nights ago. Same symbol on the side, Kess murmured. Matches the rogue's tattoo from last week. They're moving fast. Marcus nodded once. Can we predict their next drop? Working on it. Kess tapped a few keys. If they keep this pattern, they're going to hit the river routes next. Probably near Dock 12. I should have been paying attention to that. You know, actual work. Instead, my stupid Omega brain was counting Marcus's breaths. Inhale, coffee, pine, cold iron. Exhale, warmth, faint trace of his skin. The scent of him filled the room, thicker than it had any right to be, wrapping around my lungs like an invisible hand. My heart picked up a little. Heat prickled under my skin. What the hell? I straightened, trying to shake it off. I'd always had good control. Growing up as an unbonded Omega on the streets meant you either learned to smother your instincts or you spent your life being dragged around by them. I'd chosen smother. Now my instincts were turning their heads and wagging their tails over one very specific alpha. This was bad. Lane, Marcus said without looking at me. You can either come in or stop lurking in the doorway like a stray cat. Pick one. I rolled my eyes and stepped fully into the room. You don't pay me enough to not lurk menacingly. You're not menacing, Kess said absently. You're disconcerting. I put a hand to my heart. Thank you. Marcus's gaze flicked over me briefly, like a scan he couldn't turn off. For a second, his eyes paused at my throat, then snapped back to the screen. His scent spiked, sharp, like someone had struck a match. My stomach flipped. No. Absolutely not. We were not doing this. So, I said too brightly, wandering closer to Kess's desk. What's the verdict? More rogues? More smuggling? More people trying to kill me personally? Or is that just a fun recurring bonus? Kess hesitated. His eyes went from the screen to Marcus, then to me, then back to Marcus. Beta body language. I am about to say something my alpha won't like. This Omega, Kess began carefully, is actually... Marcus's head turned so fast I heard his neck crack. Lane, he corrected coolly. You mean, Lane? Kess winced. Right. Lane. Sorry. Lane's pattern recognition in the field is better than we expected. His deviations, improvisations, keep pointing us toward the bigger structure. He's not just attracting them. He's maneuvering them. He cleared his throat, sipping his tea. He's a strategist, not just bait. I smirked. Hear that, Marcus? I'm evolving. Next thing you know, I'll grow thumbs. You already have thumbs, he said flatly. And yet you still talk to me like I don't. Kess shot me a warning look, but Marcus wasn't looking at me. He was staring at the screens, jaw tight. You're saying, he said slowly, that his disobedience is now a feature. I'm saying, Kess replied, that his instinctual positioning is useful, dangerous, but useful. You wanted a unique asset. You got one. There was a beat of silence. Marcus's scent darkened at the edges, storm-heavy, not quite anger. Something else. Possessive, almost. I don't appreciate my team discussing me like I'm a defective product, I said lightly. At least wait until I leave the room. Or die. Preferably in that order. Marcus's eyes finally cut to me. Something unguarded flickered there. It felt like being under a microscope and a spotlight at the same time. Get ready, he said abruptly. We have confirmation on a move tonight. Dock 12, full unit deployment, and Lane. Yes, Dad? His nostrils flared. Don't. Right. That scent spike again. My chest tightened in a way I didn't like at all. Dock 12 smelled like the city's leftovers. River water, diesel, wet rope, the distant reek of fish from a nearby processing plant. Underneath it all, the tang of wolf, rogue alphas, restless and mean. We moved through the shadows in formation. Kess at the rear, monitoring comms. Xavi, on my right. Marcus in front, a dark, solid shape, his presence like a shield whether I wanted it or not. The night was cold enough that every exhale puffed white in the air. My fingers buzzed faintly under my gloves. Nerves or excitement, hard to tell the difference anymore. Targets in the main warehouse, Kess murmured into the comm. Thermal shows 6 bodies. 2 near the doors, 4 clustered around the trucks. Copy, Marcus said. His voice was clean steel in my ear. Team Alpha, take the north entrance. Beta Squad, east side windows. Lane. I know, I whispered. Be shiny and distracting. There was a pause. Stay in sight this time. Wow. Faith, I'm touched. Lane, I said touched, not leashed. Don't freak out. Truth was, I wasn't planning to run off. Not this time. Not. Unless I had to. We reached the edge of the loading bay. The warehouse loomed above us, big metal mouth hanging open. Light spilled from the side doors, carving pale rectangles into the dark. I inhaled. Rogue scents hit me like a wall. Aggression. Chemicals. The sour tang of fear from one of them, probably the one in over his head. And above it all, woven through like a grounding line, Marcus. His scent wrapped around my lungs, blocking out everything else for a moment. My knees almost buckled. What the hell? I braced a hand on the concrete. Lane? Kess's voice crackled in my ear. Your vitals just spiked. You okay? Fine, I lied. Pre-battle jitters. I'll cry about it later. This wasn't normal. I'd been around alphas my whole life. They didn't do this to me. My body recognized them, categorized them, ignored the rest. Marcus's scent didn't file itself away. It dug in. On my mark, Marcus said quietly. 3, 2, the warehouse door exploded inward. The concussion hit us like a physical punch. I went flying backward, smacking into the ground so hard my teeth rattled. Concrete chewed up my palms through my gloves, ears ringing, vision swimming. The tang of burned metal filled my nose. Ambush, Avi shouted. Incoming. Gunshots cracked through the air. Someone screamed. Human, not wolf. I pushed up onto my elbows, head still spinning. The front entrance was a blur of smoke and shouting. Marcus barked orders, dragging one of the betas to cover behind a stack of crates. Another shot. Wood splintered near his head. Sniper. My vision cleared just enough to see the trajectory. Bullet holes, angle, the way the sound bounced off the river wall. Roof. Northwest corner. I'd bet my next paycheck. Marcus. I yelled, scrambling to my feet. Rooftop, left side. They've got high ground. Stay down, Lane. He snapped. He wasn't wrong. I was dazed, my ears still half deaf, but I could smell the shooter now. Metal, gun oil, adrenaline, and the angle. Meant there was only one access point they'd use to get up there. A maintenance staircase around the rear, the one no one had eyes on. You don't have range on him from here, I shouted back. He's got you pinned. Another shot sparked off the crate. Marcus jerked, pulling the beta flatter against the ground, his body shielding his teammate. Without thinking, I bolted. Lane, Marcus roared. I sprinted along the edge of the loading bay, lungs burning, boots slipping on damp concrete. The world narrowed to a single point, the rear of the building, where a rusted staircase hugged the wall like an afterthought. Adrenaline drowned out the pain in my ribs. My omega instincts screamed danger at every step, and something else under it, some weird, wild joy at the risk. Lane, report, Kess demanded in my ear. Going for the plus-size surprise on the roof, I panted. Tell Marcus to stop yelling at the air and focus on not dying. This is not protocol. Yeah, I said. That's kind of my brand. I rounded the corner and saw the staircase, and the figure halfway down it. The sniper had moved, probably to get a better line of sight. He froze when he saw me, eyes widening. We stared at each other for half a heartbeat. Hi, I said. Terrible weather for murder, huh? He grabbed his gun. I threw myself at him. We collided on the staircase. The rifle clattered away, skidding down the steps. He swung at me. Enhanced speed, too strong, too fast. Rogue Alpha. Juiced on boosters. Claws flashed. Pain ripped across my side. Hot. Blinding. I screamed. More anger than fear, and slammed my forehead into his nose. Bone crunched. He howled, stumbling. Hands. Cuffs. Training. I moved through it on autopilot, years of ugly practice kicking in. In a blur of motion and nausea, I wrenched his arm behind his back and snapped restraints around his wrists, pinning him to the railing. Blood soaked hot through my shirt. Mine. This time. Definitely mine. Lane? Kess's voice was frantic now. Lane, answer. Got him, I rasped. You can send Marcus his apology fruit basket later. Boots pounded on concrete. Marcus hit the bottom of the staircase a second later, eyes wild, sent a jagged storm front. For a moment, he didn't look like my captain. He looked like a wolf mid-shift, barely contained under human skin. His gaze took in the scene in a blink. The bound sniper, the blood soaking my side, my white-knuckled grip on the railing. He moved. One hand seized the rogue by the shoulder and yanked him off the steps like he weighed nothing. Marcus slammed him into the wall so hard the metal rang, teeth bared. Call transport, he snarled to whoever was listening. Now, then he turned to me. Lane, just my name, like a prayer, like a curse. Hey, I said weakly. Before you say anything, I'd like to state for the record that I warned you about the rooftop. He was already in front of me, hands hovering an inch away from my body, like he wanted to touch but didn't trust himself to. His scent engulfed me, pine, steel, raw fear. For me, I'd never smelled fear like that from him before. My knees wobbled. I told you to stay down, he said, voice rough. I told you. And then I saved your dramatic, extremely well-defined ass, I managed. You're welcome. Again. For a second, I thought he'd yell. He didn't. He closed his eyes, took a breath that sounded like it hurt, and said quietly, Thank you. The world went a little fuzzy around the edges. What? I croaked. Don't make me repeat it. His mouth twitched, like the words were physically painful. Thank you, Lane. Something lodged in my throat. I coughed around it, aiming for flippant. What? Your throat burning from admitting I'm useful? His gaze softened. Just slightly. You're more than that, he said. The words sank into me like a stone into deep water, disappearing but leaving ripples behind. The medbay was too bright. White walls, white sheets, sterile light buzzing overhead. Antiseptic burned in my nose, half masking the underlying sense of pack and leftover pain. I lay on the narrow bed, side wrapped in fresh bandages. The claws had gone deep, but not deep enough to hit anything important. The doctor had muttered something about me being stupidly lucky and too young to be this reckless, and then left me alone for 5 minutes, which in hindsight had been a tactical mistake, because Marcus was still there. He stood near the foot of the bed, arms folded, watching me with that unnervingly focused stare. The room felt smaller with him in it, warmer, sharper. His scent filled every breath I took. My body responded before my brain had a chance to shut it down. Heart rate climbing, skin buzzing, instinct whispering safe and mine in a language I refused to acknowledge. I looked away, staring at the ceiling like it had answers. You should be resting, he said quietly. You should be less good at smelling panic attacks, I shot back. He was silent for a moment. Your scent changed, he said at last. I swallowed. Yours too. Too intense. Too focused. Too much. This isn't protocol, you know, I said, trying to sound joking and failing halfway through. Your scent being like, I gestured vaguely, that, around me. It's basically a violation of Statute 14C subsection. Something, I forgot the boring part. You're making up subsections now. Give me 10 minutes and a printer, I'll make up a whole department. He huffed out a quiet breath, not quite a laugh, almost. Silence settled between us again, not empty. Humming. You could have died, he said suddenly. I flinched. That's kind of the gig. It's not, he said. Not for you. I frowned. That's literally my job description, Marcus. Omega bait. Attractive. Flammable. He stepped closer to the bed, hands braced on the rail. His eyes were very, very serious. You are not expendable, he said. Not to this unit. Not to me, hung in the air unsaid. Thick as his scent. My chest hurt worse than my side. Captain Kane, I said softly, because it was safer than his first name. You're dangerously close to sounding like you care. He held my gaze without flinching. Maybe I do, he said. Every instinct in my body surged. My fingers curled in the sheet. My throat went dry. Heat pooled low in my belly, traitorous and confused. Stop, I whispered. We can't. Bond laws, statutes, careers, jail time, 1,000 reasons. This was a terrible idea. And under all of it, a quiet, ugly truth. If I let myself fall, I'd have to choose between him and the people who owned my leash. Marcus stepped back, as if sensing the edge. Rest, he said, voice smoothing back into something almost professional. That's an order. That's mildly illegal, actually, I muttered. Then consider it a suggestion with teeth. He turned to leave. My phone buzzed on the bedside table. He paused. Do you need... I got it, I said quickly. He left, the scent of him trailing behind like a ghost. When the door clicked shut, I grabbed my phone with shaking fingers and opened the encrypted app. A new message glowed on the screen. Good work. The sniper confirms Kane is operating outside standard risk parameters. Time to gather real leverage. We need evidence of bond law violations. Get closer. Get everything. I stared at the words until they blurred. Get closer. My thumb hovered over the screen. For the first time since I agreed to be their man inside the hounds of law, I hesitated. Because for the first time, I wasn't sure whose side I wanted to be on. I fell in love with the worst person at the worst time in the worst possible place. Not that I admitted it out loud. I barely admitted it to myself. And only in the half-second between, heartbeats, when my brain shut up and my instincts had the floor. But it was there. Heavy, stupid, undeniable. I was in love with Marcus Kane, and that, objectively, was a disaster. Lane. Focus. We were standing in front of a dead building. The old paper mill loomed over us like a rotting skeleton, all broken windows and rusted metal. The city had abandoned it 20 years ago. Gangs and rogues had been trying to adopt it ever since. Tonight, it allegedly belonged to a smuggler cell that thought it was clever enough to set up shop under our noses. Cold seeped through my jacket, biting at my fingers. The air smelled like rain-soaked concrete, mold, and the faintest trace of wolf somewhere inside. Also pine and metal. Right beside me. Marcus stood close enough that I could feel the heat radiating off him, his presence solid in my peripheral vision. He wore his usual black tactical gear, all smooth lines and hidden bulk. His expression was carved from stone. We go in through the south side, he said. Perimeter teams stay at a distance. We've picked up static from low-frequency jammers inside. They'll mess with our comms once we cross the threshold. My stomach dropped. So we're going dark? We're going dark, he confirmed. Limited time. High risk. We get in, confirm the intel, tag their equipment, and get out. No heroics. He looked at me deliberately on the last two words. Define heroics, I said. Define. Do your job without getting stabbed again. Harsh. Kess's voice came through the comms. Faint, but clear. For now. We'll maintain line of sight until you're fully inside, but signal. Disruption begins approximately 5 meters past the main entrance. Once you're in, radio contact will be intermittent at best. Copy, Marcus said. I didn't say anything. My brain was busy cataloging all the ways tonight could go wrong. And the one way, it was already wrong. Because the closer we got to that dark doorway, the stronger his scent got, wrapping around me like invisible fingers. My heart thudded, not with fear this time, but with something warmer and infinitely more dangerous. Last chance to admit you'd miss me if I died, I said lightly. For morale? Marcus's jaw tightened. For a moment, I thought he wouldn't answer. Then, very quietly, he said, Don't joke about that. Something in my chest stuttered. I swallowed the honest response and flashed him a grin he couldn't see the cracks in. Relax. I'm hard to kill. Don't test the theory. He touched 2 fingers to his earpiece. Team Alpha, hold positions. Do not enter unless I give the order or we miss our check-in by 15 minutes. That is not an invitation to shave off 10. Javi. Javi's offended sputter crackled through the line. Come on, Cap. That's slander. Shut up and watch the perimeter, Marcus said. Then he nodded to me. Let's move. We stepped into the dark together. The difference between outside and inside was like stepping through a wall. Sound changed first. The city noise muted, replaced by the whisper of wind slipping through cracks and the distant drip of water. Each footstep echoed, too loud, bouncing off concrete and rusted metal beams. Light changed. Next, what little moonlight filtered through shattered windows turned everything into jagged gray shapes. Shadows stacked on shadows, deep enough to hide anything. And then, as predicted, the comms went to hell. Static hissed in my ear. Kess's voice cut in and out. Reading. Movement. 2nd floor, then vanished completely. I tapped my earpiece twice. This thing on? Or are we free from adult supervision? Stay close, Marcus murmured. If we get separated, you head back to the entrance. Do not wander. Wow. It's like you know me. I do, he said. Too quiet. Too honest. I pretended I didn't hear that and focused on the air. Rogue scent curled faintly upward, carried by drafts through broken stairwells and open machinery husks. Old fear clung to the walls. This place had seen bad things long before wolves moved in. Dust scratched the back of my throat. 3, maybe 4 inside, I whispered. They're trying to mask, but they're sloppy. One's anxious. The others smell like overconfidence and bad decisions. Can you tell their position? Marcus asked. 2nd floor near the center, I said after a moment. Maybe a generator room. He nodded, trusting that without question. It should have just made me proud. It made me want to break something instead. Because I was using that trust to betray him. Later, some bitter part of me said, later, not now. We moved through the ground floor, weaving between dead machines and collapsed shelving. Marcus's steps were soundless, his awareness spread out like invisible radar. My own senses stretched ahead like fingers, brushing against traces of scent and temperature shifts. As we approached a stairwell, a creak echoed from above. Marcus glanced back at me, expression warning, stay put. I stayed, for all of 3 seconds. Then the scent hit me, sharp, unexpected from behind. Marcus, I hissed. Left. The impact slammed into my side. I went down hard, air punching out of my lungs. A rogue came with me, breath hot and rancid against my neck, claws scrabbling for purchase. Instinct roared. I twisted, brought my knee up, and kicked him off. He staggered back just in time to meet Marcus's fist. The crunch of breaking cartilage sounded very satisfying. The rogue dropped. Marcus didn't even look at him. He turned on me instead, grabbing my arm and yanking me upright, eyes blazing in the low light. I told you. I know, I wheezed. 10 out of 10 on the lecture so far, but we're kind of in the middle of... Something clanged overhead. Then a voice shouted, "They're inside!" And... Everything went to hell again. We never made it to the generator room. We made it to a not-up-to-code catwalk halfway up the building before somebody blew part of the staircase. The explosion wasn't big, but it was close. Fire bloomed for a second, bright and hungry, then smothered itself in falling dust. The metal beneath our feet bucked. Marcus grabbed my wrist. Move. We sprinted across the shuddering catwalk as pieces of it gave way behind us, dropping into darkness. The air filled with concrete dust and the metallic scream of stressed beams. On your left, I shouted. He pivoted, slammed his shoulder into me, and drove us both through a half-open maintenance door as the walkway tore free. We hit the floor of the small room hard. The door slammed shut behind us with a deafening bang, jarred by falling debris. Somewhere outside, twisted metal crashed. Then, silence. Thick, dusty, absolute. I lay on my back, staring up at a low ceiling barely a foot above Marcus's head. The room was tiny, some kind of storage closet or maintenance space, crammed with old boxes and a couple of long-dead control panels. No windows, no other doors, no signal. I tapped my comm. Static hissed back. "Great," I muttered. "We've upgraded from suicide mission to buried alive. Love the career progression." Marcus pushed himself up enough to look around. His shoulder brushed mine. There was nowhere for either of us to go. Too cramped to stand fully, not enough room to pace. "We're boxed," he said grimly. "My contribution is, yes," I said. "We are in fact in a box." He shot me a look. Dust floated in the beam of his flashlight, making the space feel even smaller. He tested the door. It's stuck, jammed by warped metal. "We wait until they try to move," he decided. "Then we listen, find a weakness, and push out. And if they decide to just leave us here, they won't," he said. "They'll want to confirm the kill." Comforting. He shifted, bracing his back against the wall. His thigh pressed against mine. The contact felt like a brand, even through layers of fabric. "Don't come any closer," he said abruptly. I blinked. "That's my line. Lane." His voice had that strained edge I'd heard in the medbay. Not anger. Not quite. Instinct. "Your scent is already—" He broke off, jaw tight. "The space is too small. It's interfering with my judgment." "Interfering?" I echoed. "That's a very clinical way of saying, making you think inappropriate thoughts about your subordinate." His nostrils flared. The worst part was, he wasn't the only one. Every inhale filled me with him. No room for air, no room for logic. Just pine, steel, the faintest trace of, the soap he used, and underneath it something warmer, bruised and honest. My body leaned into it, traitor that it was. My head spun. "This is a violation of, 4 statutes," I whispered. "Lane." "Okay, 5. I skipped the appendix. He closed his eyes briefly. "Stop talking. You know that never works. Lane." I fell silent, mostly because I was running out of breathable oxygen that didn't taste like him. We sat there in the half-dark, pressed together in the cramped space, listening to the faint echoes outside. Footsteps distantly. A shout. Another metallic crash. Nobody at the door. Not yet. My thoughts spun in useless circles. "You're a spy. You're his mole. You are using this man. You're in love with him. Pick one." I stared at his profile in the dim flashlight glow. Strong nose, sharp jaw, faint shadow of stubble. A tiny scar by his mouth I'd never noticed before. My hand actually twitched with the urge to touch it. He felt my gaze. Slowly, he turned his head toward me. "Stop," I blurted. His brows knit. "What?" "Looking at me like that," I said. "It's rude. And illegal. And it's going to make this," I gestured vaguely between us, "complicated." His voice dropped. "This is already complicated." I laughed once, quietly and a little hysterically. "You have no idea." Silence again. His eyes searched my face. Heavy. Intensity pinned on me like a physical weight. "Lane," he said softly. My stupid heart lurched. "Yeah? Why do you keep doing it?" "Doing what?" I tried for flippant and missed by a mile. "Risking yourself," he said. "Not just as Omega bait. You keep stepping in front of things that should hit me. You keep pushing closer. You keep—" He cut himself off, jaw working. "You're my captain," I managed. "And my boss. Try again. You're very tall and make an excellent meat shield?" His mouth twitched. Almost a smile. "Almost. Lane," he said, even more quietly. "I'm not an idiot. Debatable. I know what instinct feels like," he went on, ignoring me. "I know what it looks like when someone is pulled and trying not to be." His words sank in like ice water. I looked away, breathing too fast in the too small room. "Don't," I said. My voice came out hoarse. "If you keep talking like that, I'm going to have to say something honest, and that's dangerous for both of us." Honesty shouldn't be dangerous, he said. In our line of work? I huffed. Everything's dangerous. Breathing near you is a crime. His eyes dropped briefly, just once, to my mouth. Every nerve in my body lit up. Don't do that, I whispered. Do what? Look at me like you care. His hand tightened on his knee. The flashlight beam shook slightly. Dust motes danced. Lane, he said. And this time my name sounded like brittle glass. I do care. There it was. No way to dodge it. No way to joke around it. The floor tilted under me. I swallowed, throat tight. If you say that, I murmured, forcing a smile that felt like a wound. I might have to admit I care too. Please, don't do that to me. He stared at me, and for a long, fragile moment, I thought he was going to push, ask, confess. Whatever this thing between us was, it swelled, filling the little room, thick as fog. Then he looked away. We'll discuss this when we're not trapped in a closet with hostiles outside, he said. His tone was rough, but steadier. Right now, we survive. I laughed weakly. There it is. That's the Marcus I know. Repress now, repress later, repress forever. Lane. Yeah? He hesitated. The silence hummed. I meant what I said, he murmured. In the med bay. And just now, it's not, nothing. A stupid, reckless warmth bloomed in my chest. Of course, that was the exact moment footsteps finally approached the door. Voices. 2, maybe 3. Rogues, from the smell. They stopped just outside. One banged something against the metal, testing it. My whole body went still. Marcus shifted, hand going to his weapon. His arm brushed my chest. My heart slammed into it like it wanted out. He leaned in, breath ghosting my ear. On my signal, we hit hard and fast, he whispered. Stay behind me. I nodded, adrenaline cutting through the fog of feelings. Sharper, cleaner. You know I'm going to ignore that, right? I'm counting on it, he said. It should have been funny. It felt like a promise. We made it out. We always did. The details blurred into noise and motion. Door flying open, rogues lunging, the crash of bodies, the ringing in my ears. Marcus's back a constant wall in front of me even while I slipped sideways, cutting off an angle he'd missed. A scuffle, a shout, a broken jaw or two. By the time we staggered out of the mill into the night air, backup was pouring. In. Sirens distant, red and blue lights washing over crumbling walls. Kess nearly tackled me with his eyes. You vanished off my vitals for 90 seconds, he snapped. Do you have any idea? Love you too, I muttered. Marcus gave the all clear, handed off prisoners, barked orders. His scent was still too raw, too sharp, but his face was back behind its usual walls. The whole time, he stayed close, not touching, but close, like he was afraid if he blinked, I'd disappear. Later, washed and bandaged and technically off duty, I sat in my tiny apartment with the lights off. The city glowed faintly through the window, a smear of neon and rain. Traffic hummed like distant insects. My injuries throbbed in counterpoint with my heartbeat. My phone lay in my hand. The encrypted app icon stared back at me like an accusation. I opened it. A new message waited. Status? Did Kane exhibit further protocol violations? We need specifics. Conversations. Body language. Anything suggesting emotional compromise is valuable. Emotional compromise. I laughed. A small, broken sound. Marcus in that cramped room flashed behind my eyes, his voice saying I do care. His scent, wrapped around my bones, the way he'd looked at me like I was something worth saving. My fingers trembled over the keyboard. This was the deal. The reason I was here. The leash around my neck, made of past crimes, and promised pardons. I was their man inside Hounds of Law. I'd always known it might end ugly. I started typing. Subject continues to prioritize Omega asset safety over protocol. Exhibited elevated scent markers and proximity tolerance in confined space. Verbal indication of emotional investment. Potential bond law leverage. My stomach turned. I stared at the words. They were accurate. They were also the worst thing I'd ever written. My thumb hovered over the send button. I thought about Marcus on the catwalk, grabbing my wrist as the world fell away. About his hands hovering over me in the medbay, close enough to touch but careful not to. About his voice in the dark saying, "Maybe I do." "You're a spy," I reminded myself. "You don't get to want things." My thumb dropped. Message sent. A wave of nausea rolled through me so hard I had to set the phone down and press my forehead to my knees, breathing through it. I'd betrayed people before. I'd lied, stolen, played roles. Survival demanded it. But this felt different, worse. Because for the first time in my beautifully messed up life, I wasn't just selling out some faceless mark. I was selling out the worst person at the worst time in the worst possible place, and I was in love with him. There are a few sentences you never want to hear when you walk into work. Internal oversight is one of them. I stepped off the elevator into the main floor of Hounds of Law and almost turned around on instinct. The air smelled wrong. Too many new suits. Too much stress sweat. Sharp cologne that had no business on our concrete coffee-stained turf. And underneath all of it, the bitter metallic tang of fear. "Lane," Javi's voice hissed from behind a pillar. He grabbed my sleeve and yanked me out of the path of three strangers in. Dark gray jackets, their badges clipped where everyone could see them. "Do you have a death wish, man?" "They're in a mood." "Who?" I asked, even though my stomach already knew. Javi jerked his chin toward the glass hallway leading to the conference rooms. Through it, I could see them, 5 people at the end of the corridor, walking in formation like a flock of vultures. Suits, clipboard, tablet, body language that said, "We own your future." One of them wore the silver insignia of the Bond Integrity Office on their lapel. Bond Law Enforcement. Perfect. My phone suddenly felt like it weighed 10 pounds in my pocket. I could almost see the last report I'd sent glowing through the fabric, spelling out Marcus's emotional compromise in neat little traitorous lines. The universe had a sense of humor. "So," I said, aiming for casual and landing somewhere near choked, "is this about, me?" Javi blinked. "What? No. Why would it be about you?" A list of reasons sprinted through my head like a conga line of bad decisions. "Just a thought," I muttered. He slapped my shoulder. "Relax. Word is they're sniffing around Kane. Bond violations or some crap. Someone upstairs thinks he's getting too cozy with his favorite Omega." My heart flatlined. "Oh," I said. "Cool. Great. Love that for us." I watched the suits disappear into the biggest conference room, the one with the ridiculous glass wall and the 2 bright lights. My reflection stared back at me, pale and wide-eyed. If they had my reports, if they used them, this was my fault. I barely heard Kess until he nudged my arm with a file folder. "You should breathe." I startled. "I am breathing." Louder then. "So we know you're still alive." He studied my face. Beta. Gaze sharp. "You look like you're about to sprint out of the building." "Tempting," I said. "Very. But I forgot my favorite hoodie upstairs." "Lane." I swallowed. "They're here for Kane?" "Yes," Kess said. "And before you ask, no, they're not supposed to be. His record is clean, on paper. But someone's been feeding them extra data." I flinched so hard he noticed. His eyes narrowed, but before he could say anything, the door to the far elevator opened. Marcus stepped out. He wore a suit. I'd seen him in tactical gear, in uniform, in casual clothes exactly twice. Somehow the dark navy suit was worse than all of that combined. It fit him too well, broad shoulders stretching the fabric just a little, jaw clean-shaven, hair sharp. He looked like a wolf forced into a human courtroom. The room reacted to him automatically, shoulders straightening, sense pricking with alertness. His own scent was clamped down hard, but not absent. Heavy pine, cold metal, and underneath it, a slow-burn anger. His gaze swept the floor once and found me like he had some sort of lane-tracking radar. My instincts surged up, relief, stupid and fierce, and crashed into the realization of why he was here. The suits, the bond office, my report. I'd done this. "Captain Kane," one of the suits called from the conference hallway. A tall woman with hair slicked back into a knife of a ponytail. If you're ready. He didn't take his eyes off me as he answered. I am. Then he nodded once, at me, and turned to follow them. My legs moved before my brain approved. The conference room felt like a different building entirely. Colder, for one. The overhead lights were too white, leaching color out of everything. The glass wall made it feel like being on stage while the whole unit pretended not to watch. Last time I'd been in here, it was for a debrief on a major bust. There'd been coffee, bad donuts, jokes. Today there were pitchers of water, neatly stacked legal pads, and the kind of silence that made my skin itch. Mr. Lane, the ponytail woman turned as I slipped in behind Marcus. Her badge read, Director Alara Thorne, Bond Integrity Office. Of course it did. This session is for command-level review, she said coolly. You weren't summoned. I know, I said. I came and I felt Marcus go still beside me. I didn't look at him. Lane, he said under his breath, low enough that only wolf ears would catch it. Out. No, I said. Director Thorne's eyes went from him to me and back, assessing. Let him stay, she said at last. The Omega is central to our concerns. Great. Love being central. We sat. Marcus at the end of the table, posture straight, hands folded. I took the chair to his right, resisting the urge to fidget. The suits fanned out on the other side like a jury. Thorne placed a slim tablet on the table and slid it forward. Captain Kane, she began. Hounds of Law is a unique asset. Your division operates at a high-risk threshold with special exemptions. However, that does not place you above bond law. I'm aware, Marcus said. Then you are aware, she continued, eyes sharpening, that alphas are expressly forbidden from using instinctual pressure on unbonded omegas without clear documented consent and supervisory oversight. Especially subordinates. Her gaze flicked to me. Even more so when said omega is structurally dependent on them for field safety. Structurally dependent. I was going to throw up. We have received reports, Thorne went on, tapping the tablet of repeated proximity, scent saturation, and protective prioritization beyond standard. Captain-subordinate dynamics. This includes several incidents where Captain Kane allegedly placed himself in direct harm to protect a single omega over the rest of his unit. Marcus's jaw tightened. I didn't need to see the screen to know what was on it. My words, my descriptions, my betrayal. We are investigating, Thorne said, whether Captain Kane has violated bond statutes and compromised operational objectivity due to emotional entanglement with an asset. The word entanglement felt like a slap. My pulse roared in my ears. Excuse me? I cut in, because if I didn't talk I was going to start screaming. You're saying, you think he what? Likes me too much? That's a crime now? Lane, Marcus murmured warningly. Yes, Thorne said simply. It can be. The bond law exists precisely to prevent unsanctioned alpha-omega pairings from destabilizing units and corrupting chains of command. Her eyes pinned Marcus. Do you deny prioritizing this omega above others in your charge? He held her gaze, steady as stone. No. My heart stopped. Thorne's eyebrows lifted. You admit it. I prioritize my entire team, he said. However, Lane's role as bait places him at higher risk by design. I adjust accordingly. That is not bond violation. That is leadership. Is that what you tell yourself? One of the other suits murmured. I had to grip the underside of my chair to keep my hands from shaking. Thorne swiped something on her tablet, then turned it toward Marcus. Even from here, I could make out a few phrases on the screen. His scent wrapped around my lungs, blocking out everything else. He stayed so close, it felt like he didn't trust the air to carry me safely. I think he cares. I wish he didn't. My own words. From my own reports. I tasted bile. Marcus's eyes flicked over the text. For the first time since I'd met him, I saw something like shock break through his composure. Then he exhaled, slow, controlled. I see, he said. Thorne's gaze slid to me. These internal notes from our embedded source paint a concerning pattern. My what? I croaked. Our embedded source, she repeated. The agent placed within hounds of law to monitor protocol adherence. Her meaning hung in the air for half a second too long. Marcus turned his head, looked straight at me. "Lane," he said quietly. "You look surprised." It hit me then, that low, strange note in his voice. Not surprised, confirming. "You knew," I whispered. It wasn't really a question. His eyes didn't leave mine. "I know you work for them," he said, "in front of God and oversight and everybody. I've known for some time." The room tilted. "From your scent?" I heard myself ask. My voice sounded like it belonged to someone else. "Is that a thing? Guilt, musk?" His mouth twitched. "You don't hide anything well, Lane, especially from wolves." I laughed, a short, cracked sound. "If you knew..." My chest hurt. "If you knew, why didn't you destroy me?" There it was. The real question, the one that had been clawing at the inside of my ribs since the moment I hit send on that first report. He could have exposed me, kicked me out, thrown me to the wolves, literally and metaphorically. He hadn't. Marcus looked at me like we were alone, like the suits weren't even there. "Because," he said slowly, "you're not my enemy." My vision blurred. "Adorable," one of the suits muttered. Thorne cleared her throat. "This is precisely the issue, Captain Kane. You are compromised. Whatever you believe Lane to be, legally he is an asset who has one foot outside this unit." I flinched. "Regardless of your feelings," she continued, "you have violated the letter and spirit of bond law by allowing an unregulated bond dynamic to form. As of now, you are suspended pending full review. Please surrender your badge and holster." The words fell like hammers. Suspended. This was it. Marcus reached slowly for his badge. "Wait," I said. No one did. "I said wait," I snapped. Thorne looked at me, impatience sharpening her face. "Mr. Lane, this does not concern..." "It concerns me," I said, louder than I'd ever spoken in this room. My voice bounced off the glass, carrying into the hallway. Heads turned. "Because you're building your whole case on me, and you're getting it wrong. Lane," Marcus said softly. "Warning and something else." I stood up anyway. "You want to know why his scent's all over me?" I said. "Why his vitals spike when I do something stupid? Why he looks at me like that? It's not because he woke up one day and decided to emotionally compromise himself." I laughed bitterly. "I made sure of it." Thorne's eyes narrowed. "Explain." I swallowed hard. "You planted me here to watch him." "So I did. I watched, I pushed, I provoked." "Half those situations you're quoting? I escalated them on purpose to see how far he'd go. I ran into danger. I got too close. I weaponized my instincts because that's what you trained me to do." My hands were shaking now, but I didn't stop. "If there's a violation on the table," I said, "it's mine. I knowingly manipulated a superior officer's instinctive responses to gather data for you. I abused my status as an Omega to trigger protective behaviors. I forced myself to meet Marcus's eyes. I dragged you into the gray zone and then reported you for standing there with me." Silence crashed into the room. Thorne regarded me like I'd grown a second head. "You understand that admitting deliberate manipulation will implicate you in bond misconduct as well?" "Yes," I said. "Congratulations. You've got two problems now. You are not helping yourself," she said. "Good," I snapped. "I'm trying to help him, Lane." Marcus's voice sounded like it had been sandpapered. "Stop." I turned to him. "Why? So you can take the fall for something I started?" "That's not how this works, Marcus." His expression was unreadable. His scent wasn't. It was a storm breaking open. Thorne sighed. "Regardless of your theatrics, Captain Kane is still the alpha in this dynamic. Responsibility lies with him." Of course it did, because in their minds, it always came down to which half of the bond had teeth. Marcus stood. He didn't surrender his badge. He stepped slightly in front of me, blocking some of the suit's view. His shoulders squared, every inch of him radiating the kind of authority that made wolves roll to their backs. "Enough," he said. Thorne's gaze hardened. "Captain Kane, you're right about one thing," he said, cutting cleanly across her. Responsibility does lie with me. He glanced back at me just once, something fierce and unshakable in his eyes. Then he faced the commission. Lane is not just an asset, he said. He is my partner. I have treated him as such in the field. If that is grounds for suspension, then so be it. But I won't stand here and let you dismantle him to justify punishing me. The word partner hit me like a physical blow. He went on, voice steady. He provoked some of those incidents. He pushed my limits. He made choices I don't approve of. But he did it because we put him in an impossible position. Split. Between two masters. You want to know where the violation started? It started the moment you decided to use an Omega as a spy and a lure at the same time. Thorne's expression flickered. My throat burned. Marcus lifted his chin. Whatever consequences you decide to hand down, he said, I'll take them. But understand this clearly, he is not my weakness. He's the reason this unit has survived half the cases you're reviewing. He is my partner. And I choose him. The words hung in the air, heavy as a verdict. He chooses me. Me, the mole. Me, the traitor. Me, the Omega who sent the reports that brought this commission down on his head. My knees threatened to give out. In the hallway beyond the glass, faces had turned fully toward us now. Kess, Tavi, half the unit. No one moved. No one breathed. Thorne studied Marcus for a long moment, then looked at me. You realize, she said slowly, that this statement will appear in the official record. I'm aware, Marcus said. And that choosing an Omega in this manner will complicate any possibility of this being dismissed as incidental. I'm still aware. She exhaled once, sharply, then tapped her tablet. Very well. We will adjourn for today and review testimony. She stood. The other suits stood with her, leaving their threat and their paperwork heavy in the air. This is not over, Captain, she said at the door. It never is, he replied. They left. The conference room door closed with a soft click that echoed like a gunshot. For a few seconds, all I could hear was my own pulse. You, I said. You, he said at the same time. We stopped. I swallowed. You just told Bond Integrity. Their spy is your partner. He shrugged once. Very small. It's the truth. You could lose your career for that, I whispered. Your unit. Everything. He finally looked at me again. The full force of him landing where it always did these days, right in the center of my chest. Lane, he said quietly. I didn't sacrifice my career. He stepped closer. I chose you. Something in me finally, irrevocably broke. Not in the way I'd expected. Not like shattering glass. More like a dam giving way at last, letting everything I'd been holding back rush out and flood the empty spaces. My eyes burned. Well, I managed, voice shaking. That was incredibly stupid. Probably, he said. I don't deserve that. Probably not. I laughed, and this time it was wet and ugly. You're supposed to say I do, you know. No, he said, and there was something almost gentle in it. You deserve better. But you have me instead. Heat surged up behind my eyes. Marcus, I said, because hiding behind Captain felt cowardly now. I'm so sorry. I know, he said. He'd known. He'd always known. And he'd chosen me anyway. By the time the sun went down, the building felt hollow. Most of the unit had gone home. The usual soundtrack, ringing phones, printers, distant arguing over report formats, had faded to silence. The only light on our floor came from the narrow rectangular windows, and the soft glow spilling out from one door at the end of the hall. The training room. Of course, I paused outside it, hand hovering over the handle. My heart was beating too fast for someone who'd technically survived the day. You could leave, a small, mean voice in my head said. You could walk out, disappear, let him deal with the fallout without you making it worse. It would be easier. Cowardly. Expected. I opened the door. The training room was almost unrecognizable at night. Someone had killed the overhead fluorescents. Only the wall sconces were on, throwing warm, low light across the wooden floor. The mats had been rolled up, the punching bags stilled. The room smelled faintly of old sweat, polish, and pack, But under it all, like always, there was him. Marcus stood in the center of the floor, hands in his pockets, bare feet planted like he owned every inch of space. He'd ditched the suit jacket and undone the top buttons of his shirt. His tie hung loose around his neck. He looked tired, not physically. I'd seen him after 48-hour ops, running on fumes. This was different. The exhaustion sat in his shoulders, in the tightness around his eyes. He turned when the door clicked shut. For a moment, neither of us said anything. "You came," he said finally. "You told me to meet you here," I said, because being difficult was my last defense. I figured ignoring you again would really tank my performance review. A ghost of something like amusement flickered over his mouth, then faded. "I didn't order you," he said. I asked. Something in me wobbled. "Yeah," I said quietly. "I noticed." I walked toward him. My footsteps echoed softly on the wood, a hollow tap-tap that made the room feel even emptier. The closer I got, the thicker his scent became. Pine, steel, a thread of rawness underneath that I hadn't learned how to name. My instincts didn't panic this time. They didn't surge or try to drag me into fight or flight or fold. They just settled. Like, oh. Here. Okay. That was somehow scarier than the adrenaline spikes. I stopped a couple of feet away from him, close enough to feel his body heat, far enough that I could still pretend I had choices. I cleared my throat. "So, that was quite a show you put on for oversight. Really went all out with the I choose him thing. 10 out of 10 for drama, by the way." I almost clapped. His gaze softened a fraction. Almost. Didn't want to incriminate myself further. Silence stretched between us. Warm, uncomfortable. I looked down at the floor, at the scuff marks from 100 training sessions. "You sacrificed your career," I said, before I could stop myself. The words came out small, too honest. "For me, I didn't," he said. I looked up, annoyed. "Oh, I'm sorry. Did I hallucinate the part where bond integrity threatened to suspend you for emotionally compromising yourself with your favorite Omega?" His eyes held mine, steady. "I didn't sacrifice my career," he repeated, quietly this time. "I chose you." There it was again. That stupid, impossible sentence. Something inside me finally snapped. "What is wrong with you?" I demanded. My voice cracked. "You're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to protect your unit, your rank, your spotless file. You're supposed to look at me and see a liability, a security breach, a walking bond violation." "Is that what you see?" he asked. I laughed, sharp and humorless. "No, that's the problem." My hands went up, useless gestures carving the air. "I hate this. I hate what I feel. I hate that I walk into a room and I can't breathe right because your scent is everywhere. I hate that you look at me like I'm something worth fighting for when I'm the one holding the knife over your head. I hate that—" My voice broke. I swallowed hard, but it didn't fix the burn behind my eyes. "I hate what I feel," I said again, quieter. "Because it's the worst timing, with the worst person, in the worst place, and I don't know how to be anything but a mess about it." He listened to all of that without flinching. Then he stepped close enough that our toes almost touched. "I don't," he said. I blinked. "You don't what?" "Hate it," he said simply. "What I feel—" My heart did something painful behind my ribs. His gaze searched my face, as if he were looking for an exit and not finding one. "I don't like the timing," he went on. "I don't like that you're tangled up in oversight and old debts. I don't like that my choices put you in their sights." His mouth tightened. "But I don't hate the way I feel about you." My brain short-circuited for a full 3 seconds. "You're not allowed to say things like that," I managed. "It's very illegal. I'm pretty sure there's a subsection." He huffed something that was almost a laugh. "You and your imaginary subsections, they're very real in my heart." He shook his head, something fond and exasperated, an unbearably gentle flickering across his face. "I meant what I told them today," he said. "You're my partner. That's not a performance for oversight. It's a fact." "Partners," I repeated dumbly. "You and me. The Alpha Captain and the Omega Spy." His jaw tightened at the last word. You're not their spy anymore, I snorted. You can't just say that and make it true. They own my leash, Marcus. They have files on every crime I ever committed before I put on this badge. You think they'll just, what? Let me go because you glared at them in a conference room? We'll deal with them, he said. That's not a plan, I said. That's a vague sentiment and a lot of glaring. His eyes didn't waver. We'll deal with them, he repeated. Together. I've already filed a formal complaint about their use of embedded Omega assets. Kess is pulling case law. Javi is annoying people mostly, but it's surprisingly effective. Despite myself, a shaky laugh escaped. You turned the whole unit on them. They messed with my team, he said. What did they expect? Your team. Your Omega. The words turned over in my head like warm stones. I don't know how this ends, he admitted. But I know this much. I'm tired of letting other people decide what I'm allowed to feel. About my work. About my pack. His eyes caught mine. About you. The room felt very small. I'm not good at this, I said. Feelings. Choices. Not running. You've done both remarkably often since you got here, he said dryly. I thought we were having a vulnerable moment. We are. Then stop being smug. He took a slow breath. Lane, he said, you get a choice now. For once. Stay, really stay, or walk. If you walk, I'll deal with oversight. I'll protect your name where I can. I won't chase you. My throat closed. And if I stay? I whispered. His voice softened. Then we figure this out. The bond law, the unit, us. Not as captain and asset, not as spy and mark. As partners. Partners. My instincts shivered. Is that an official invitation? I asked. Like, on department letterhead? Dear traitor, would you like to become a legitimate employee? His mouth twitched. If you stay, you do it clean. No more secret reports. No more double duty. You work for Hounds of Law, and that's it. Oh my God, I said. I'll have to do normal paperwork. Yes. And follow actual rules. You'll try, he amended. I stared at him. Then I let out a breath I felt like I'd been holding since the day I walked into his office bloody and grinning. So if I say yes, I said slowly, I'm officially on your team. No more secrets. No more clandestine observe and report. Don't get attached texts at 3 a.m. Yes, he said. And I'm not your asset. I'm your... The word still felt dangerous on my tongue. Partner. Yes. A laugh bubbled up, wet and messy and real. So, I said, I work for you now, officially. Without the double agent nonsense. You always worked for me, he said. You just hadn't admitted it yet. I rolled my eyes to hide how that landed. You know, your ego is going to be unbearable now. Probably. And I still reserve the right to ignore your instructions. His eyes warmed. You can reserve whatever you like. A beat. But my instructions still stand, he added. There it is, I said. Knew that was coming. He stepped closer. We were almost chest to chest now. The heat radiating off him sank into my skin. His scent wrapped around me in a way that didn't feel like pressure anymore. It felt like home. My Omega instincts, those traitorous things, didn't surge or collapse. They stretched, then yawned, then curled up with a contented sigh. I'm scared, I admitted. The words came out small. I know, he said. So am I. Is this the part where we do something stupid? I asked. Probably, he said. But we'll do it carefully. I snorted. That is the most you thing I've ever heard. Silence settled over us, but it wasn't empty. It hummed. Can I? He started, then stopped. I stared at him. Marcus Hale, Alpha Captain, notorious for barking orders at people twice his size. Hesitating. What? I asked, softer than I meant to. Can I touch you? He asked. He gestured, almost awkwardly, to my shoulder. Here. My chest did something unhelpful. Wow, I whispered, asking for consent. Very progressive of you. Lane. Yes, I said. My voice shook. You can... His hand came up, slow enough that I could change my mind. I didn't. His palm settled on my shoulder, warm and solid. A second later, the other hand came up to rest on my opposite shoulder. I exhaled. The knot between my ribs loosened. We stood like that for a long moment, just breathing. Then I leaned forward. Our foreheads touched, gently. Every nerve in my body went quiet. No static, no panic, no screaming alarms. Just calm. His scent washed over me, not as a wave, but as a tide that had always been there, finally settling into its pattern. I hate that I love this, I murmured. I don't, he said. Of course he didn't. We stayed there until my knees stopped feeling like jelly, until my breathing synced with his, until the echo of the day's chaos faded into something small and distant. Eventually, because I'm me, I ruined it. So, I mumbled against his forehead, hypothetically speaking, does this mean I'm employed? Like with benefits, paid vacation, matching retirement plan? His breath puffed out against my skin in what might actually have been a laugh. You're on the roster, he said. Kess already filed the paperwork. You're fully attached to Hounds of Law as of... He checked his watch without pulling away. 2 hours ago. I pulled back enough to stare at him. You filed it before you talked to me? I was confident, he said. Arrogant, I corrected. Accurate, he said. I shook my head. Unbelievable. So what, I'm stuck here now? No more dramatic exits? No more dramatic exits, he agreed. Just dramatic entrances. That, I said. I can live with. We fell quiet again. The thought that had been gnawing at me surfaced. So, boss, I said lightly. Because if I didn't make a joke, I'd start crying. Again, what exactly is your plan if oversight tries to pull me back? I mean, you can't just growl at them until they surrender. That's not how bureaucracy works. You'd be surprised, he said. I huffed. He grew serious again. Whatever they do next, he said, we answer it, together. If they threaten you, they threaten this unit. And I don't let anyone threaten my pack. Your pack, I echoed. That includes me now? It always did, he said. My chest clenched. Cool, I said, voice wobbling. No pressure. His thumbs brushed absently along my shoulders. It felt stupidly good. So, I said after a moment, needing to drag us back from the edge of overwhelming feelings before I drowned in them, I'm your partner, officially, working for you, no more secret masters. We're doing the terrifying, honest thing. Yes, he said. And your instructions still apply, I added. Yes. I tipped my head, smirking. Dream on. He smiled then. Not the thin, sharp-edged thing he gave to the world. A real one. Small, crooked, soft in a way I'd never seen before. It did something extremely irresponsible to my heart. Lane, he said quietly. Yeah? He didn't say anything else. Instead, he let his hand slide up, fingers curling lightly around the back of my neck. Not pulling, just anchoring. The choice was mine. For once in my life, truly, honestly mine. Walk away, or step forward. I took a breath. For the record, I said, this is the dumbest, bravest thing I've ever done. Then I closed the last bit of distance between us. One step, voluntary, calm, certain. His forehead met mine again, easier this time. Our noses brushed. His thumbs drew slow, soothing circles on my skin. Everything in me went quiet. We stood there on the warm wooden floor, in the soft light and the hush of the empty room. Two idiots with too many scars and too many rules stacked against us. Partners. Finally. Stay, he murmured. I smiled, eyes closing. I'm staying, I said. I'm choosing you too, and for the first time since this whole mess began, the future ahead of me didn't feel like a sentence or a mission. It felt like something we'd write together,